So we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Another full house, 2 in a row. That's good. Either we're doing stuff really well or really badly. Hopefully well, or hopefully interestingly. The vision of the Village of Valemount is striving for a vibrant and balanced community. And the mission, our mission statement, is to serve the community and embrace opportunity. So the first item is a adoption of the agenda. And I've got 2 amendments here. One is a letter of support, a request for a letter of support from the Canoe Valley Community Association. And another one is a letter of support for Wishbone Theatre Productions. And we would do those under new business if council is amenable. Okay. Councillor Bullock, Councillor Blanchette, all in favor? Good. Can I borrow a pen? Oh, thank you. Let's go. Okay, so moving along. Adoption of the regular council meeting agenda of April 9th. Motion? Sorry, that's what I just did. Okay. Well, we did that well enough the first time. Let's move on to the next item. We've got the minutes from the public hearing, zoning amendment bylaw 692, microbrewery.
Yeah, there's page 6. It's we're talking about the microbrewery, but on the second paragraph under for action it says home occupation.
I'll catch that.
Okay, and then page 11.
That's probably a different set of minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks, thank you.
I've got that in the for action item. Okay, cool. With the proposed changes, Councillor Salt, Councillor Latimer, all in favor? Good. Moving along, minutes of the public hearing for the zoning amendment bylaw 693, otherwise known as home occupation. It's on pages 8 and 10.
Yeah. Sorry, page 11.
This
is for the.
That'll be for the third set of minutes.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah, so we're on pages 8 to 10 is what we're just reviewing right now. That's for the home occupation. Did you have any changes for that one? Okay, for sure.
I just have a minor one, page 9, under the comments of Sylvia Jungo, the second bullet, just a minor word change, should be noted that instead of the.
Right. Got it. Excellent. Okay, so so amended. Councillor Salt, Councillor Blanchette, all in favor? Good. Okay. The public hearing, development variance permit, DVP 0213, public library. Okay, and definitely. No worries. It's a new system tonight.
So, yeah. So it says, adoption of the public hearing agenda for zoning bylaw home occupation, but then underneath it says the DVP, so which one are we doing?
That's a great catch.
Okay. To the next page. Everybody's comments are written down except for the last person, Janet Germain. It just said made a comment.
You're really calling on my 4 minutes. I unfortunately missed Janet's comment. Like getting the other comments down.
Okay.
But thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fair. I guess with those amendments, I mean, I guess we have to be satisfied to a certain point. Are we comfortable that the minutes are fair and accurate? Because I mean, we are missing that one comment, but if we're still able to, we were all present and listening. So if we're able to live with that, okay, good. Councillor Salt, Councillor Bullock, and then all in favor? Okay, good. Yeah, we all know the system's not totally perfect. When it counts. Okay, then we'll be approving the minutes from the regular council meeting, March 26th. Any changes to those minutes? Okay, so as written, Councillor Salt, Councillor Blanchette, all in favor? Okay, great. So no delegations tonight, no unfinished business. Correspondence for action. We got a request from the Valemount Learning Center requesting that the Village of Valemount be a sponsor for enterprising nonprofits, a grant application they're making. Staff is comfortable with this. This is on page 21 and 22. The recommendation is that council approve Valemount's Learning Center's request.
I'll make a motion to approve being the sponsor for the Valemount Learning Center.
I'll second.
Okay, and Councillor Salt. And discussion around that?
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. Okay, good. Excellent, let's move along. All in favor? Great. Okay, we've got a couple items from the reading file. Does anybody want to pull those up? I think the second one, just briefly, is just to indicate that the village sort of did its work there at making sure that the Ministry of Sports and Cultural Development got a letter of support for the Varda Clonlina shelter. So, but yeah, so I guess a motion to receive reading file. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Latimer, and all in favor? Okay, excellent. Okay, now we've got an administrator report. So who better to give an introduction to this item on a clarification on the library expansion development variance permit 0213 than the administrator?
The history behind this is that the library had approached the village for a development variance permit because both their existing building and their planned expansion is within the setbacks allowed in the zoning bylaw. So knowing that staff would be recommending that the library go through a review process to document and do due diligence in preparing for their expansion, staff had recommended that the variance be postponed until that process was complete. So the recommendation was to postpone, and as council had approved the variance, it needed some clarification, which was not presented in the original variance proposal. So this is just to provide that clarification around what an approval looks like.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I understand it. Is council comfortable with this? It takes some getting your mind around, but basically, I'll just say it again in layman's terms, we hear this stuff. If it's a good item, we hear it 3 or 4 times, so that's kind of why we understand it. We talk about it really quickly. But essentially, the library where it is too close to the property line. So that's one item. And then the other item is that the library expansion, they want to expand the library and they want to bring that out and also keeping within that distance, that setback. And so it sort of came to council and we sort of kind of dealt with it, but we didn't really nail it home. And this just gives us the opportunity to do that. So council, what is your wish?
And your worship, just to note, your worship, it will, it is a 2-part recommendation.
Okay.
Oh, both of those.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll make
yes.
the motion.
Oh, okay, you're trying to choose between them?
Trying to figure out how they all fit together.
They
Okay.
both,
All right.
it's a development variance with 2 separate
Okay.
pieces should have 2 separate statements in it.
Sure.
Okay.
So you separated into the DVP and okay.
They're both within the development variance permit. One is for the existing building and one is for the proposed development.
Okay. Yes, I will make the recommendation That council resolves to approve placement of the existing library within setback, side parcel line 3 meters, defined by zoning bylaw 610, section 20.3 for P3 zoning. And 2, that council resolves to approve placement of the proposed library construction within setback, side parcel line 3 meters, defined by zoning bylaw 610, section 20.3 for P3 zoning, and that this variance be valid for a period of 3 years from date of approval, April 2016, by which time construction must have begun.
Okay, great. All in favor? Excellent. Okay, moving along. We've got the economic development report up next. Went to the wrong place here. And should we speak to this or just move along? I guess we've got some other items coming up that also need time. So just move along. What's council? What's your wish? Okay, wow. There we go. Well done.
Thanks.
Seconder, Councillor Salt. Any discussions, comments? Okay.
Yeah, I would like to say that it's exciting that the first phase of the Cranberry Marsh Trail is complete, which is just clearing right now, but it is a start.
Right. Okay, and is that phase, does that include, because there's also those pilings in there, is that,
Yeah.
does that include that?
Yeah.
Process? Fantastic. And so now it's just a matter of getting the rest of the deal together. And of course, there's some other important stuff, but like item number 6.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll talk about that in reports maybe. Anyways, you guys should really get this online. We're not going to tell you what we're talking about. It's fantastic. Okay, so we've got first and second motion. We've been talking about it. Motion to approve economic development report. Excellent. We'll move down to the building inspector report, page 32 and 33.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept it.
Okay, that's Councillor Salt, and then all in favor? Great. I love hearing how there's people inquiring about various things. Well, projects that they want to do. It's just mentioned in there. You got to read it carefully, but it's fantastic. Okay, so financial report, accounts payable report for the month of March.
Make a motion to accept it.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. And all in favor? Great. Okay, 13.2, garbage truck purchase. That council approved the borrowing of $125,000 for the purpose of a new garbage truck. And we've got a report associated with that. And who wants to bat that? The administrator? You want to speak to that?
I certainly can if you
I would like it
want
if you
some
speak
detail on that.
really loud. That would be fantastic.
I can't speak about a garbage truck very loudly. Everyone, I think, is aware of the condition of the village garbage truck, and some of the challenges that there are around our current garbage pickup. So the village has decided to purchase a new truck and purchase, what are they called? Wheeled carts, I think is the one term, but they're automated bins with an automated arm for emptying them for both residential and business. We're just in the process of gathering quotes on that, and this should get us a new garbage truck shortly. That
Right.
speaks to.
And I guess a couple of the things that all speak to this. Did we already do first and second reading on this, or?
This isn't a bylaw.
This is not a bylaw, this is just authorizing a loan of
Okay,
$125,000.
okay. So do we bring okay, well, we'll just talk about it. Since the village has taken on the contract, one of the things that we've been able to do it less expensively than our contractor with village staff. We do have a garbage truck that's not in good condition, and there are these issues around people picking up garbage bins. Like it's a WorkSafe BC kind of hazard. So the potential for people injuring themselves is great, and the merits of reducing the amount of time that it takes to do the garbage pickup is this.
it also plays nicely into, I think, the village's aspirations to do, well, it's not about this right now, but it does set us up for the ability to do recycling in the future. But that's not, it's not a promise that we're making now or anything, but certainly that's where our interest is. And the idea is that if we can get the pickups done quicker, I've seen these machines operate in small towns in Saskatchewan. I just happened to see them go down the street, and it's amazing. They do the, they do the town in a morning, and there's lots of really good reasons to do that. And the administrator is writing things in a really messy handwriting that I can't understand.
Reduce tipping fees as well.
Right on. Okay, Councillor Bullock?
I also want to note that we did put it in our 5-year financial budget
Yeah,
for $25,000 over a 5-year period. So it's something we have been talking about for.
yeah, exactly. Okay, great. So I guess it's time to entertain that motion.
Move to approve the borrowing of $125,000.
Okay,
Up, can you say up to?
Up to, I'm sorry, $125,000 for the purchase of a new garbage truck.
excellent.
Second it.
Okay, great. All in favor? Excellent. Okay. Audited financials. We've got a report. At the last meeting, our audited financials were presented by KPMG, Colleen Ballantyne. And so she sort of went through for council those audited financials. Anyways, we just heard those, had an opportunity to get back to her over these 2 weeks. I was actually really impressed. It's like 20 really concise pages. So now now is when we would receive, and I think interestingly for the public, we can share those now. So there's a bylaw snag that until we approve the audited financials, we can't share them. And I think it's probably to do if they say that we're doing something wrong, or if we don't have a totally clean audit, and that gets out in the public, but there was some mistake or something like. I'm just trying to think about why it would be that we have to approve them before we can show them, but that was very clear. So, at any rate, now is our opportunity to approve the audited financials. Councillor Bullock, Councillor Salt, all in favor? Excellent. And so, interestingly, there were no notes on that audit. It was a clean audit. So.
Your worship, those will be on our website as well.
Okay, so the audited financials are on the website. They are? They will be after.
They can't
We have
until
to
you
drop
approve.
them. Okay. Okay. Pages 43 to 58. This is our 5-year financial bylaw, 691. Now, it's not like we just a point, I kind of was confused by this before I got into this game. It's not like we approve these and then don't do anything for the next 5 years. We update these every year. But it's an idea for the council to be forward thinking and thinking about where things are going to be in 5 years. At any rate, they do, the 5-year financial bylaw, 691, does, well, anyways, it's an item for consideration. This, I guess the purpose of this report is to seek our approval for third reading of the 5-year financial plan. And there are options and recommendations listed. And one, which was made at the last meeting, which was resolution 88/13, was to approve just a 2% inflation rate with additional expenses over and above to be covered by surplus, with the expectation that staff will work diligently to keep surplus use to a minimum as previously approved. But the other option being put on the table by staff who are waving the flag, they're saying, consider repealing resolution 08813 and instead approve the 2% inflation rate plus a 1% tax increase, with all additional expenses to be covered by surplus, with the expectation that staff work diligently to keep surplus use to a minimum. And the impact of that 1% is given, because it seems like it's a tax increase, what is the amount? But staff here, at my request, have broken out, one, what the total amount is in the increase to the village's budget, which is, it is $5,507, is what we anticipate that revenue would be with that increase. And then it accounts for the impact, the additional municipal tax on every $100,000 of assessed value, with additional 1% tax increase over and above the 2% inflation adjustment, means for residential an additional $4.14. So if your home is worth $100,000, this 1% increase means that you pay $4 more. If you own a business, it means that you would pay $8.40 more per $100,000 of assessment. At any rate, I understand at the last meeting, we agreed to resolution 88/13, which is just approve 2% inflation rate. But there's an opportunity here to, I'd say, be fiscally conservative. And I mean, and one of the items here is next year is an election year. So are we, you know, but we can see that, we can see the expenses and we can see the income, right?
Your
And
motion.
we know that, yeah.
Do you want to move in second so that we can open the discussion?
Oh, thank you. All right. Do we have does somebody want to put a motion on the floor? Okay, Councillor Blanchette, in favor with the 1%?
No, I thought we were putting it on the floor to
This is-
discuss.
We
Oh.
still have to put we have
For
to choose
receipts? Let's do it for
a-
receipt.
Okay,
That's actually not necessary. What would be is a motion
yeah.
to have third reading plus one of the two recommendations.
And
that
then we
would allow
vote on it.
discussion.
Okay, so I'll make a motion for the third reading to maintain resolution 088-13, option to approve the 2% inflation rate with an additional expenses to be covered by surplus, with the expectation that staff will work to keep surplus use to a minimum.
Okay, excellent. And seconder for that motion? Councillor Salt? Okay, discussion?
Yes, I'd like to discuss, actually. I've appreciated the time that we had from the last council meeting and making this resolution to now. Because nobody likes to hear about tax increases. But after talking to our CAO, she brought up some really good points, and also me staying up in Cedarside this winter, recognizing that Main Street is a huge issue right now that's going to have to be repaved in the near future at the cost of millions of dollars. Other points that Anne mentioned was planning for long-term infrastructure replacement, which as a council we identified as a priority. It's difficult to do so with budgets that don't allow dollars to be placed into reserves. Looming infrastructures around buildings and roads. New potential capital projects include the possibility of an upstream water intake, possibility for some funds for the library, affordable housing, etc. I do feel that 1% is a conservative increase, and if you do that incrementally instead of slapping a large increase at one time in the future, will be harder to swallow. So I'm actually in favor of the 1% increase.
Comment as well.
Yeah.
I am also in favor of the 1% increase, only because it just seems like every $100 that we dip into surplus, I mean, that surplus is going to run out at some point, and that money tree is going to die. And at some point we're going to have to increase taxes, and it'll probably be more than 1% in order to be able to stay in line with our expenditures as of the village. I mean, our revenue has been pretty level, but our expenses have been increasing more than 2%. from what I can see by looking at the financials.
You know, it's interesting if you look at the cash flow, as you say, okay, how do we look at financing the Main Street paving, right? And to say, okay, here's your, you know, your classic 1/3 municipal, 1/3 provincial, and 1/3 federal funding to go and make that street better, right? And then is when the crux is to say, okay, yes, it's whatever, 60 cent dollars or whatever, or what is the phrase that I used to hear people in council say it, but there's dollars that are funded by the other levels of government, but the idea is if you haven't got that money in the bank, you do not have the option of making those, you know, yeah. For the same reasons, I'm in favor. The other thing, which is I just put it out there, a clever political tact is that we know that the regional district and the hospital budget, their tax implications are going down this year, about this amount. And so the 1% will be, as far as the tax bill, if your property is the same assessment as it was last year, or, you know, if it hasn't changed radically, then you won't see a difference in your tax bill.
Well, I'd rather have 1% than all of a sudden like 12,
Yeah.
especially since I live in town.
And I think that's the way it's gonna go in a couple of years. Not this council, but, you know, councils from here on in are gonna suffer and try to find the money.
Can I just make a point procedurally?
Sure.
So just given the way the discussion's going,
Yeah.
council kind of has two options. One, Councillor Blanchette could make a motion to remove her initial motion, in which case it just dies.
Yeah.
But if she doesn't want to do that, then council would have to have a vote and then to defeat the
I
motion.
think we can do it. That's the way I understand it. So that I was going to call for all in favor, and then we'll just.
Sure.
Yeah. So all in favor of maintaining resolution 088? Okay, fair enough. So that would be, and that's a great way to do it. Okay, and so moving along then, would somebody like to make a motion to repeal?
I just want to make another comment. I totally understand and, you know, the rationale, and you can't deny it, absolutely. The reason why I was initially staying with that is I know our citizens have been in such a depressed economic state for several years, and I know $4 doesn't seem like a lot, but to some people it is huge. Every little bit makes a difference. So that's why I had taken the stance that I had. But at the same time, I know $4 is easier to eat than 40.
Yeah.
So that's all I just wanted to have a comment.
Okay, Councillor Bullock?
I'll make a recommendation to repeal Resolution 088-13 to instead approve the 2% inflation rate plus 1% tax increase with all additional expenses to be covered by surplus, with the expectation that staff will work diligently to keep surplus use to a minimum. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, great. Thanks for the good discussion, guys. It's good. Zoning amendment, bylaw 692, microbrewery, fourth and final reading. The recommendation is council approve fourth and final reading. Councillor Bullock?
Now I'll make a recommendation to seek a council resolution in support of fourth and final reading of bylaw number 692, 2013 in order to permit a microbrewery in the central commercial C1 zone.
Okay. And all in favor? Cheers.
Cheers.
They're still with us. Okay, zoning amendment bylaw 693, home occupation, fourth and final reading. Councillors?
I'll recommend that council approve the fourth and final reading of bylaw 693, 2013, which removes home occupation restrictions based on type.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, Councillor Bullock. All in favor? Okay. Okay. For those who weren't here at the last meeting, we had fulsome debate and discussion on that item. 14.4, Temporary use permit. It's on pages 68 and 74. So I am going to let, who would like to set this up for us? Yes, please.
So, the Canoe Valley Community Association has rented part of the building on 3rd Avenue. It's what was the vacant building right next to the Valley Sentinel. And they've rented that for the purposes of a number of programs and offices and then various events. And the challenge with the zoning, the C3 zoning, is that it allows for offices and it allows for recycling / secondhand stores, which what they're doing with their clothing swap, but it doesn't allow for a public assembly space, public gathering place, which would be allowed in, say, C1. So they've following our development procedures and our bylaws, they've put forward an application to say, on top of all the existing uses permitted in C3, can we also allow for public meeting space to be added for this one particular address? And so that's in essence the request. But then they've also prefaced the request for council to consider a waiving or deferral of the $450 application fee for a temporary use permit. Now the rationale behind the fee that we typically charge is that if council gives approval to go ahead with the temporary use permit tonight, it's not approval of the permit, it's approval to go through with the application, which means that we would have to advertise in 2 consecutive papers, and then it would come back to a public hearing on May 14th, and following that, a final council decision. So there's essentially 2 resolutions that are needed from council tonight. The first is either to deny the temporary use permit or approve that it go forward to a public hearing. Should it go forward to a public hearing and council's okay with bringing it back at a later date, for council to consider that $450 fee and whether that could be waived or deferred for the Canoe Valley Community Association, bearing in mind that a deferral or a waiving would have implications on our advertising budget. I hope that was clear.
Yeah, clear. I have a question for you. Is it possible, could we just ask the Canoe Valley Community Association, rather than charging the $450, to cover the advertising costs? So if they're able to get, am I going out of the coloring outside the lines here?
The fee typically covers advertising costs. It doesn't allow a lot extra.
Okay.
That's about what advertising costs are.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also read in here that they've applied for a grant and aid from the regional district.
Right.
So what I read. So we could, in theory, defer until we hear back on whether or not they were approved for their grant and aid. Correct?
We'll know next week,
Oh.
April 18th.
And that grant and aid, maybe I should ask Canoe Valley Association. The grant and aid, is that for the to cover the temporary use permit? Okay, awesome. Sorry, I'm probably not supposed to do that, but I just wanted to clarify.
Hey, you're in the zone, man. Like, just rock it. Yeah, that's great. Okay, council, what's your wish?
I'll make a motion to move this forward to bring it back to a public hearing.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Excellent. And you specifically didn't mention costs? We'll just go forward. Will
Later.
it the regional district?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's later.
Okay.
Do we need,
Can we do that?
do we need to have that in the motion to defer the costs until we
Could I
hear
write
back?
in the motion, costs are deferred until April 18th? No, the challenge would be, should that grant and aid be denied, what then? Because the expectation is when it's approved that they would pay, but if it's denied, what happens then?
But it still has to come back to a public hearing, correct? So isn't that when that would be?
No, you
Well, we
have to
have to pay
advertise for the public hearing.
Okay.
In fairness, I think we should support the Community Valley Association, but, and maybe, I don't think we're in a position to cover their costs, so why don't we just defer payment until they know from the regional district? I mean, I think we could set probably a pretty dangerous, I mean, I just have some big implications if we say, we'll just waive the fee. I'm not sure, staff's response to that?
I would say, and do you want to speak to me? Want to speak?
Yeah, no, this is sensitive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a poor precedent to set. I think fairness would indicate that applications to council are covered by the applicant.
Okay. Okay, very good. So there we have it. I think that first motion captures it, and I think your added language is fine. Is that cool? Well, we'll take a vote on it.
No, I just want clarification on the motion. Sorry. So we're going to.
In truth, I'm not clear on the.
Okay.
Oh.
So we're going to move ahead with the public hearing and defer the payment until April 18th, until they found out about their funding? Is that?
Yeah, but we've also talked about the fact that if they don't get their grant and aid, whether or not we set the precedent to cover this temporary use permit, or whether we say the applicant covers the cost of the temporary use permit.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, can
So-
we? Yeah.
I'm sorry. Are we saying that if the grant and aid comes through, the grant and aid will cover it, and if not, the applicant will cover it?
That's-
Either way, the village is not covering this.
Right.
Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. All in favor? Okay. Just on the, we didn't, yeah. And during the public hearing, we'll talk about whether we care if, or whether it's, I guess the public's gonna have a chance to say, are they concerned about doing this in the C3 zoning?
Can I just ask a question about the temporary use permit and how long that would last for then?
So right now, they've applied for the temporary use permit for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
It's the maximum one.
Oh, okay.
The local government act states that you set the timeline, and then when it expires, you have the opportunity to renew once.
Okay.
And at that point, it would come to council a second time. But their business plan right now is based on a 2-year pilot,
Super.
so that's why the 2-year.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I have one other question. Like, what happens if they're in C3 zoning and they're not supposed to be? Like, does the roof cave in? Like, what happens? Like, what's the ramifications of being in the wrong zone when it's only a temporary use?
That's a great question. And I've had lots of conversations with the various members of the Community Valley Community Association, so if they don't mind that I speak on their behalf. We've allowed them to go ahead with the office and with their clothing swap, because that's very similar to what's already in the zoning.
Sure.
But exactly. But in terms of the programming, which potentially could bring, say, 30 or 40 people at once to the site, therefore increase traffic, which doesn't fit, we've asked that they hold that program elsewhere until the temporary use permit goes through.
Okay.
Which is a little bit of a hardship on their program, because they might have to switch venues midstream, but it does align with respect for the neighborhood.
Okay.
Is that what you're getting at? Yeah.
And I think the thing is, we throw it to a public hearing, and then we see if any neighbors are gonna come up with really good reasons, and we're not gonna presume to know, right? To me, I'm gonna tell you, having moms gather or people gather in that place to do literacy thing is not gonna, like, I'm not really worried about it. Does it keep me up at
It
night?
seems like all these little tiny bureaucratic stuff gets in the way of us being able to move forward and do a program like that. And we get caught up on this.
But
just seems-
it's true, but you can see how it doesn't take much to get, it's like, oh wow, you got a restaurant where? Or you've got yeah.
Can I just speak to Councillor Blanchette's point? For example, if this is an area where there's heavy trucks, or other things that could be a danger to children, that would be one consideration. There's always a careful consideration of the mix that goes into each zone.
I know, it's just frustrating when it's this little stuff that gets in the way.
There's
of a
lots
good
of zoning
program,
stuff
you know?
that we need to look at.
Right. I just have a comment. If it's going to be permanent, then they could apply to have it rezoned from C3, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it would come to council for
Yeah,
that.
That's right.
And a bigger process and a more serious process,
Right.
because that would have some implications, because the next people in there could do something.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
good, I think we're cool on that. Okay, so moving on to the new business now, that we brought up at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, sorry. Council reports first.
Oh, sorry about that, I just missed that. Council reports. Let's start with that. Who wants to go first?
I'll go because I haven't got anything pretty much. April 4th, actually, the Healthy Communities Committee, we had a photo shoot on the Bigfoot Trail. So that was sort of exciting for our thing in Smithers. I'm sure it'll be really horrific when we walk in and see our faces this big. And April 8th, we had a library expansion meeting, and our CAO has joined the committee, which was exciting. And it was a good meeting, and we moved forward, and we're all rehyped.
I'll go next because I haven't really got a whole lot either. On the 4th, I had a geothermal meeting. Just an information meeting with our CAO, and our mayor was on the line, and just on where we're going to go with this geothermal project that's coming up. So it was just a 3-hour meeting about geothermal stuff. That's all I can tell you at this point. And I was at a tourism conference for 3 days, which was very informative and very enlightening for our village. That's all I've done.
Good.
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
No.
Okay.
And on March 27th, I attended the public budget presentation, and we didn't have quite the full house we have tonight, but we had one very eager citizen that had a lot of questions, and hopefully I think we've answered and satisfied them. So, like his worship has said, either we're doing something right or doing something wrong, or hopefully, but usually I take a good sign that if we don't have a big turnout there, it means people are happy with what we're doing. So I took it as a positive sign. Thursday, March 28th, I attended Valemount Area Chamber of Commerce. They had a luncheon with our MLA Shirley Bond. She was in the community, and quite often when we're approaching an election and all candidates' forums, they like to try and coordinate getting together with the chamber and to start answering some questions then. And so we had a very nice luncheon with her. And then on the 3rd, I had a very brief meeting with our economic development officer, going over my presentation I'll be doing at the Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association, welcoming and inviting 4 Western Provinces delegates to Valemount next year for the AGM here. And I think that's, oh no, and I also had a library building expansion committee meeting on Monday and tonight.
Thanks.
Just this past week, I was invited to the Council of Forest Industries conference in Prince George, and that was very interesting to attend. I met lots of old friends, lots of people and companies who used to work in our valley, and we had words about the future of forestry in the province and how Valemount plays into that. And I say very quickly, I think that the future of the province is its communities. Not everybody in the forest industry agrees with that. But that's good. We had some really good discussion, and it was great. I actually found it to be very useful to go to the, I'm going to say their conference, the forest industry conference, because you sort of get to see the forest industry and their element and the things that they're considering and whether or not they're considering the issues that are important to us. It was also an opportunity to meet with MLA Shirley Bond and Forest Minister Steve Thompson and keep Valemount in the limelight there. Shirley Bond was actually in town for the wildlife management area announcement. Essentially, Cranberry, the Start Sanctuary has been reclassified to a wildlife management area. And what I'm told is this has implications for how well we can manage the area and how easy it is for us to do the things that we've been trying to do, like not take 6 years in order to build a trail or to get permission, 6 years to get permission to build a trail, which in the time that you applied from it has become from like $100,000 project to a, multi-million-dollar project. Or it's not, it's actually pretty affordable considering what the options are. But that was great to see Shirley Bond in the community, and it was great to meet her. I also met her at the chamber luncheon. The big news is also from MLA Shirley Bond in the interim agreement and our friends from the resort branch is that the interim agreement for Valemount Glacier Destinations has been signed, and that got a lot of press, and it's a big deal. We know our friends who have the idea for the year-round resort are very anxious to move forward, and it's still early stages, but things are moving along. And I mean, many people in Valemount are going to be like, well, weren't we here before with the Canoe Mountain Resort? Didn't we get an interim agreement? And the actual fact is, not only did we get the interim agreement, we actually had a signed master development agreement in hand. And yet, these things are not always straightforward. They don't always just happen the way that we would like them to. But for those who've been involved with the Valemount Glacier Destinations and the sort of the depth and the breadth of the consultation that's happened with our community so far, the work of the Ski Society, partnership with the SIMC, the close work with the village, this one has its arms and legs and fingers and toes. So we'll see where that takes us. Yeah, and that concludes my report. So motion to receive the council reports. Councillor Salt, Councillor Bullock, all in favor? Okay. And so then we'll move on to new business, where if you, for councillors, it'll be in an amendments folder in Dropbox. And we'll start with a request from the Canoe Valley Community Association. I'm just waiting for it to come up, so I can't read it yet. Does anybody want to bat that one around? Basically, they're seeking a letter of support.
I'm just waiting for it to.
Me too.
So I'll speak to both actually, because they're both related. So the Canoe Valley Community Association and the second item, Wishbone Theatre Productions, I believe they're both applying for the same CBT youth grant, which expires, the application deadline is this Friday, April 12th.
Okay.
And so both organizations are looking to strengthen their application to CBT from a letter of support from the village. And so both documents submitted are basically background documents on their grant, their business plan, and what they intend to do when they receive the funds. So the reason the first one's taking quite some time to load is it is indeed their business plan and their grant application.
Okay, this is for the
Canoe Valley Community Association.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So if they're applying for the same grant, we can give each a letter of support if we wish? Or?
Yes.
The grant can be awarded to more than one recipient.
Okay, okay.
Fantastic.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to support, or write a letter of support to both organizations for the CBT. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. For the CBT funds.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Excellent. All in favor? Great.
Can I ask you to remind the public that if they have things to bring to the agenda, we need it by the Thursday of the week before the council
Okay,
meeting?
sure. So the administrator is just reminding me to remind you that if you have items to make it to the agenda that you want to bring forward, like you want a letter of support, for example, that you need to bring that to us the Thursday before the council meeting in question. And I just want to tell you.
Thursday noon.
By Thursday noon. And I can just tell you from our perspective that earlier is better, because that's not a lot of time, especially if it's something, if it's a curveball or whatever, or if it's anything. Anyways, as soon as you have an idea, come talk to us. That's the point, right? Just open lines of communication all the time, and then we'll all be good. Okay, excellent. So we're out of new business. We've got a list of outstanding council resolutions, calendar of events. What does it say for these? Do we need to receive these? No,
Information only.
they're for information. So that brings us to that hallowed hour, the hour of power, the public comment period. So there's a big list of rules here about how you comment, but I think most people are familiar. Just stand up, say your name, you get to speak for 2 minutes. We really like it if it's something to do with the business at hand tonight. That's ideal. So don't be shy. And you can just stand up and say hello.
All right, I'm Sharon Stearns, and I just want to thank the village and all of you for giving Wishbone Theatre a letter of support for my theatre project for youth in this community, which is our future. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That was good, but not perfect. You also need to say your address. But it's okay. We're good. We're
This
good.
is my first call.
Yeah, your first council meeting. Congratulations.
Kim Thorne, 825 Highway 5 North, and thank you for supporting the Canoe Valley Community Association's new initiative. We're actually not going for a youth grant, we're going for a social grant. It's a different stream.
Apologies.
That's all right. And we also have 2 more letters of support, one from the principal at the elementary school and one from the public health nurse that we would like to include with this as well.
Okay.
Sure, if you'd like us to.
Yeah. Okay, great. Excellent. We welcome other comments from the public. These, yeah.
Junior Sajic, 820 Heaven Crescent.
Hi.
One thing I just want to know about the public works report there. I know, I'm sure the foreman had time during the course of the month to get a report in there.
The Public Works report?
The next time I go for a variance, I would like to see consideration to waive my $450 fee. Like, I don't think the village is in any state to be waiving fees or even considering talking about it. So I just thought it went on and on for, people are going for a variance, they should be prepared to pay the $450. And then you guys talked about Canoe Valley and Wishbone. Like, I've been around here quite a bit, and that's the first time I ever heard about Canoe Valley, and you guys just didn't explain who they were, and Wishbone, I never heard about that group before either. So just a couple comments.
Okay. And I am no longer allowed to debate with you after this thing, but I will catch your ear as you leave the door, and that's way more fair for everybody. But thank you for your comments, those are good. So we want to make sure that the public is following along and know who these organizations are as we do stuff. It's but it's also a balance of how fast we are. Any other comments from the public?
Sorry, what am I supposed to say first? Name and address.
Name and address, but you're doing it for the second time. Okay, see if you can get it right, and we'll give you 30 more seconds.
I just wanted to address this gentleman.
No, this is not the time for that. You can catch his ear on the way out too. Excellent. And you can talk to Gord Peters, he'll probably give you your own TV show. Yeah. Okay, on satellite. Any other comments from the public? Okay, great. If that's it, motion to receive the comments. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Salt, all in favor? Great. Okay, so the next item, item 20, is a notice to proceed in camera. This is in accordance with section 91 of the community charter. This section of the meeting will be held in camera to consider one item 1K, or it's 1K of the called municipal service. Thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Salt, Councillor Bullock, all in favor? Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I appreciate it. We love it when you come. Come next week.